Are you with a low effort man? It's time to stop positioning yourself for low effort treatment with men who give you bare minimum. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Miss Linda and I talk about seduction, femininity, leveling up, and everything that you need to know to elevate your love experiences. So hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of my weekly videos. Now, I work with women on one-on-one, and mostly women in relationships or newlywed wives. And after being married for 10 years, there's one thing I've come to realize: women position themselves wrongly in relationships. Now, think about it from the dating stage. You started off when you were in power, the man chased you, he courted you, he got into a relationship with you. That's how you ended up married or in a relationship in the first place. But throughout the after some certain time, and this is something I get asked so many times, and I even had a conversation with one of the ladies last week, and her relationship is in a terrible space. It's in a completely, like, it's in a space where honestly it's really not like you wouldn't want to be there. Yeah, I think hers is on the extreme side, but many women are now having to deal with bare minimum relationship with men who treated them with value in the first place. And it all comes down to you giving away your power. Relationships are a power dynamic. Like I mentioned, when the relationship starts, the man is the one pursuing you. Then eventually what tends to happen is once he gets you, women now suspend all standards, all boundaries, and everything. They become too nice, too understanding, without realizing they are creating a monster, so to speak. So how does this happen? Many times you realize, and I'll speak when I got married for my first few years, you will get to hear things like, a woman is the one who keeps the marriage. A woman is the one who makes the relationship work. Subconsciously, that conditions you to always be too understanding. You don't want to ruffle the feathers. For instance, if he comes home late, maybe he usually comes home at 10. Maybe on a Friday night he had told you he'd be home by 10, and then he comes home at midnight. Yeah, you don't want to ruffle the feathers. You let it slide. The next time you realize he's coming home at 1, then at 2, before you know it, he's pulling all-nighters. Now, what usually starts out as something small, like you suspending your boundaries because you do not want to make your man upset, subconsciously you are told that good women are the ones who make relationships work. So you put up with that kind of behavior. Maybe at some point you'll start to talk about it, but then usually when you're talking about it, the man has tuned out. And that's because probably you're talking about it when it's a little bit too late. So by the time you want to speak with him from the point to tell him that you're not happy, he's already on the defensive. A pattern has already been established. Now what you're doing is you're appearing in the masculine. Now you're beginning to chase him to listen to you. I always advocate for you laying the boundaries early enough. You having the right kind of agreement with your man and knowing how to communicate from a point of feminine energy. So yes, he's done something wrong to you. Yeah, and I'm talking from a point of you two are in a committed relationship. Most of the dating coaches out there, I mean, most of the people who talk about femininity, they'll speak from a point of you being a single woman dating. So there the advice usually is get another man, get another man. It is so easy to get another man when you're in the dating stage. It's so easy to get another man even when you're in a relationship stage with someone who's not yet committed to you. But what if you're married? What if you're in a long-term committed relationship like a marriage? You can't just wake up and get another man. And this is where you now have to think about, how did you even end up in the first place? Why did you let your boundaries slide? Did you even have boundaries? Let's even start from there. And boundaries, it's not you going to tell your man, yes, maybe at some point you will come together and have an agreement about certain things, but many times, this one I can tell you, many women do not even have that conversation with your man to let him know what is really making you upset. And even if you are having that conversation, chances are you're having the same conversation over and over and over again, and he's tuning out because there's already a rift happening in the relationship. It's one thing to be in the dating stage, it's another thing to be in the relationship stage. When you're in the relationship stage, it really requires you as a woman, and this is the only thing that's worked. This is the only thing after being 10 years is working for me, because I also got separated. Now we are together again. I can tell you, you have to lead your relationship with feminine energy. And feminine energy, a feminine woman is a woman who really understands herself. You see, you cannot have boundaries if you do not know what makes you happy, if you do not know who you really truly are at your core. Because that man can easily go and be with another woman. Maybe to her, staying out late is not a core value of hers. She really doesn't mind. But maybe to you, like a man staying out late till past certain hours is a deal breaker for you. And the only way you can be able to establish boundaries is if you know what makes you happy, what are your non-negotiables, what are some of the things, like if they happen, you'll be able to risk the relationship. And then from that point, being able to lean back and really evaluate your relationship and ask yourself, am I really even in the right kind of relationship? And you're able to do that if you even have something like a love list. Many wives don't even have love lists. And I've spoken with so many women. And even if they have a love list, it's usually like on a very superficial level, because it's easy to write things like you want to provide a man. Okay, fine. What is it about providing? Over and above that, does this man meet your needs mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally? From there, you're able to gauge, is this the kind of man who can be able to meet my needs in this relationship? Once you're clear about that, I can tell you, and once you start to lead with your feminine energy, and what does feminine energy look like in a relationship? It looks like you leaning back. If your man has been doing something over and over and over again, it's time to downgrade that relationship. It's really time for you to reflect. Because the other thing I hear so many times is a man keeps doing the same thing. He keeps hurting you the same way. You keep approaching it the same way. Yeah, let's use like maybe he's not paying much attention to you. So you keep reacting the same way. Maybe you used to talk so much about it and nothing is changing. So you've become passive aggressive. First of all, having those relationship talks, to be honest, it puts you in the chasing mode. Yeah? So you can imagine the energy, the dynamic between the two. He's done something wrong. Yeah? Then he comes home. Of course, you're upset. You want to start a conversation. The fact that you're even initiating that conversation already is putting you in the masculine. There's no way you're soft when you're having a relationship talk with a man. You are in your masculine, you are initiating. Already he'll feel that masculine energy. And of course, he is a man. He's there to be with a woman. He'll rebel. He'll rebel because it's like it's another man coming to confront him and blame him because he stayed out late or he's not been taking you out on dates. He will rebel. And if any, that's why many times those relationship talks never yield any fruit. You keep having the same conversation over and over again because the way you are approaching it, you are approaching it in the wrong way. you're not approaching it from the point of you being a feminine woman. By the time there's a rift happening in your relationship, the power dynamic has been flipped. Yeah? It's been flipped. So now you are on the chasing mode. And many people don't talk about this. How women in relationships still chase their men. And that's how you chase your own husband. You're chasing him when you want to tell him that you want to have a conversation. That's you being in the chasing energy. You're also chasing when you're the one who's always initiating, like, oh, let's talk about this particular issue. Why don't you take me out on dates? You know, those kinds of conversation, or it puts you in the masculine mode where you're chasing him for affection, for attention. And what that says is there is something missing within you that you need to go and get from him. If you find yourself in such a cycle, it's really time for you to take a step back and really think about what are some of your deep fears when it comes to love. You'll be surprised that so many women have deep fears. And these are the stories that they keep telling themselves over and over again. So maybe you find that he's staying out late. It's sparking something within you, a deep fear. Maybe when you grew up, you saw your dad staying out late, and maybe you observed your mom, being so happy about that fact. But she put up with it for forever because that's the life she chose. So deep within you, maybe you fear that that same cycle that you thought you avoided at home is repeating itself in your place, in your own environment, in your own relationship. And you have to really come to the fact that that is what is at play. And even when he's staying out late, yes, there's an element of him staying out late, but what is the deep fear that that is bringing up within you? Once you're able to understand what is that deep fear within you, you get really, really clear and you start to evaluate your relationship. I honestly think you should be evaluating your relationship, even in a marriage, on a yearly basis. You can decide to do this by yourself or as a couple, but you should be evaluating your relationship on a yearly basis so that you can gauge whether you are really truly happy. And remember, relationships, it takes two to tango. Yeah, and this is something I always remind my private clients. You ended up in this dance because you also participated in the dance. It's not just him being in the relationship, there is also you. Yeah, so if he's staying out late, what is it that are you in any way enabling that staying out late? The common reaction I normally see is once a dude starts staying out late, you'll find women now, they also want to start staying out late. If a man is cheating, you also want to start cheating to get back to him. The thing is, you, as a high value feminine woman, you should not be lowering yourself to the level where someone else is. Think about it this way. That's why they say birds of a feather, they flock together. You see, probably he knows maybe there's nothing that's gonna happen. Let's start from there. Yeah, he is already used to you behaving in a particular way, so he's not gonna change. He knows that, he'll come, you'll talk, nothing will happen. Then he'll probably say sorry, then the cycle continues. And for as long as you're enabling that kind of cycle to continue, where you find yourself having talks over and over again about the same thing, thinking that this is the last talk that is going to change stuff, but nothing, you already have a history of like maybe months or years, or you discussing the same conversation, yet nothing is changing. It's at that point you need to really do your inner work. You really need to find out, what is it about you Yeah, and I'm talking about relationships. I'm not talking about relationships where you're dealing with an addict or where you're dealing with violent man. I'm just talking about relationships, healthy relationships where you're with a man, like a good man who courted you, dated you in the right way. Then the dynamic is now beginning to shift in the relationship. That is now where you need to do your inner work and then get really clear in terms of what are some of the fears that you brought into that relationship. And then from there, have a conversation in a feminine way. Yeah? And that conversation, it should not be you initiating. I always tell my clients, give yourself space. Give yourself space. Because if you've reached a scenario where the two of you are not on the same page, you have to take time out. Even if you're living in the same house, you have to take time out. Because if you think about relationship, they're like a bank account. They're like a bank account. Every day you do something nice to each other, it's like you're adding a shilling, a shilling, a shilling. Yeah? Such that if you look at it like a bank account, it's filled up with daily deposits in it, such that, and ideally it should have more, just like a bank account. Yeah? So that when you have an argument, it's like you're taking out something out of it. That way there's still enough balance within the bank account to play around with. But by the time you're reaching a level where you keep having the same conversations over and over again, you're always home alone over the weekends, there's no intimacy or affection, it means your bank balance, you're operating on empty. And that is really not the right time to even have a conversation. First of all, there's even no energy. During that period, that's the time you need to take time out. Get a mentor, get a coach, do your inner work, do your inner healing, get clarity. Call back all that energy that you've been using to fix the relationship. Call it back to you. Use that time to really get clear on what is it that you want. Get clear on what it is that you want. And automatically, when you start to focus yourself, what tends to happen is men notice, by the way. He will notice things are not the way that they are. You're not yelling, you're not screaming, you're not shouting. Even if he stays another night out, you're not focused on him, because deep down you know you are taking time to get really clear about what it is that you want about the relationship. A good man who cares about you will know there's a shift. He will initiate that conversation. And at the point when he initiates that conversation, that's when you ought to be ready to really speak from your heart and let him know what the things are that are not making you happy. You might argue and say, what if my man, I've been doing this work and he's not coming to me, things are getting worse? I can say the first thing is, when you start to do your inner work, yes, probably your relationship will have triggered you to do some inner work, but it should be for you. You should be the one who needs to decide what is the kind of outcome you're looking for. In my case, I ended up leaving my marriage because I knew that that is what I needed to do. So that it's really important to downgrade the energy in the relationship in whatever kind of way. For me, I left my marriage. For you, it can be to stop focusing so much more on him and focus on you, so that you get clear on what it is that you really want. And by the way, you will find that, first thing, you will find that you two contributed a lot in that relationship dynamic. You will find that there are certain growth areas that you have. You will find that probably the way you've been communicating, you've been doing it from a very masculine point of view. You will find that there's a lot within you that also needs to grow. Yeah? So when it comes to positioning yourself for bare minimum relationships, it starts with subtle, small things. And the biggest contributing factor is you do not know yourself well enough. Because if you know yourself, you will be able to really know what are your non-negotiables and what are your boundaries. And from there, you will be able to enforce, and you will not be scared to walk away. You will not be scared to risk the dynamic of the relationship, because you truly know yourself and you truly know who you are and what makes you happy. So if you find yourself in a position where you're dealing with a man who you feel like, and you see, as women, we feel the energy in the relationship shift. So if you find yourself, like I mentioned, you're always home alone over the weekends, you keep having the same arguments over and over again, there's no affection, there's no romance, check out my email in the description, because I offer one-on-one coaching for newlyweds who are experiencing that kind of power struggle in their romantic relationships. So let me know what stage of the relationship are you at. And yes, if you love such kind of content, please subscribe, because I post weekly videos on the same. Thanks for watching, and bye.